Good morning, everybody. This is Deidre Diamond with CyberSN. It's great to be here with you. I'm your moderator today, where we're talking about hiring and retaining talent with some of the best SMEs in the business. So I'm super excited to be here with you today. I want to put a special thanks out to MindLance for helping put together this great group of panel. MindLance is a strategic partner with CyberSN, and we're happy to be joining forces. So let's get going here. I've got 4 lovely people on the screen here, as you can see. Big fan of having everybody introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Susan and let her introduce herself, and we're going to get into this lovely topic here during Breach Week, Susan. That's what I'm calling this, Breach Week.
Thanks, Deidre. So good day, everybody. Susan Koski. I lead a team that essentially has product responsibility for everything in cyber and stakeholder responsibility for fraud. And, you know, pretty big role. And, you know, I really love being in security. You know, I think that just to talk about how I kind of got my start, I got my start because someone was willing to take a chance. Someone was willing to say, boy, I really like what Susan brings to the table. And, you know, how do I help invest in her skills and give her visibility and opportunity to curate those skills? So, you know, it's always looking for kind of that person who's going to be your buddy and be your mentor and be kind of your sponsor to get you going. But why this is so important to me, I'm just so passionate about people. I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink and his theories on knowledge workers, et cetera. And I think our knowledge workers, right, they want to do knowledge worker kinds of items. And how do we as leaders do that? But then also, how do we as leaders make sure from a diversity and inclusion perspective, we're looking for diversity of thought, diversity of culture, diversity of background. So that's why hiring and talent retention is just so important to me. I think it's the fun part of the job and what we do.
Yay, it's always wonderful when I hear somebody in a management position loving people. I always tell people, please don't go into management if you don't love people. Meaning, you know, I get that we all love people, but meaning love the act of loving people for a job. You know, and so super important. And I know, being that you oversee so many different departments in cyber, you're going to have some good nuggets for us, because talk about complexity of hiring. You hire so many different types of people, Susan. I'm super excited to hear about that. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm looking forward to your stories. Lane, tell us about your story.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. My name is Lane Sullivan. I've been in security for quite a while now. I'm currently a deputy CISO. I come from the technical ranks, so hands-on keyboard, engineering firewalls, application development, things like that. So it's interesting when, you know, you sit down to interview somebody and you know, at an executive level, they want to keep things high level, but I'm not afraid to dig in when, you know, sitting in an interview with somebody and it surprises them sometimes. But, you know, I absolutely agree with Susan. There's 2 paths that you can take in your career. You have the technical path and you have the leadership path. I kind of steer away from, you know, a lot of people use the word management, and really, management's for managing tasks. Leadership is for, you know, providing that leadership for people. I really like engaging with people, giving them the hope and helping them achieve their goals in their career. That is a huge part of why I love being in the leadership role, is to help engage with people and help them see where they're going and then get them on that path to meet those goals.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm not surprised, considering you're all here to share and get into this topic, to hear this from you all. And yet, truly, it is, you know, the key to being successful in your roles, because your talent, and just, of course, all of us that manage people, your talent are your defenders, our defenders, and they must be cared for, or, you know, they're vulnerable, right? So I love that. That's one of the reasons I love cyber in general. Everybody's pretty much social servants, which you don't necessarily find in IT or software. They're not, and it doesn't make them bad. I'm just saying, as somebody that's spent time with both and is a sociology major myself, it's as clear as day how many social servants are in cybersecurity. So thank you, welcome, and can't wait to hear the shares you've got for us too here. Sue, hello.
Hi, Deidre. So, hi everyone. I'm Sue Bergamo. I've had a very long career in technology, and I'm grateful that I chose tech as a career choice. It's been a wonderful opportunity. I've had a lot of wonderful opportunities, and I'm working for a global company, heading up the security area. But it's not just security, compliance, risk. Architecture, engineering, I could go on and on and on, but even in front of that, security and compliance are now a sales enablement tool. And I'm all about the customer. Our customers want to know that they can, count on us to have a secure environment. So while it's our roles to be very diverse, maybe our backgrounds and our work itself, in protecting the company, but the bottom line is, we are literally a sales enablement tool going forward. And I think that's one of the reasons why security is not just a sought after industry. There's so many different paths that can be taken in this industry, but it's so important to every organization to make sure that they're doing the right things and protecting employees and customer information.
Yeah, it's I published in the beginning years 22 job categories a few years ago. Now I'm at 35 and about to launch 45 job categories of cybersecurity. It is vast, and a security engineer has 7 different profiles, minimum. And so, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's super powerful. And you've recently job searched, so I can't wait for you to share the do's and don'ts of that too, right? So we've got listeners here that are both job searching and want to hear what some of the best employers, out there have to say about how to help them or get in, a lot of entry level around. And also we have, practitioners and leadership listening to us, and everybody hates job searching. It's a terrible experience. It's a broken system. We don't know how to match ourselves to jobs digitally yet. And so I want to hear, and I know everybody does, some do's and don'ts, since it's so fresh for you, Sue. It's really relevant. So let's make sure we weave that in. All right, Sandy, share with us.
I'm Sandy Dunn. I'm a CISO at a major health payer organization in Idaho, and I'm also an adjunct professor at Boise State University. And part of the reason I took on that professor role was I kept noticing that there was this disconnect between the skills that we needed within cybersecurity and the perception of what the job was out in the general community. I would go out and speak about a role in cybersecurity, talk to high schools or go out and talk to colleges, and everyone thought all we did was sit around and hack all day. Everyone was a pen tester, and the needs that I have on my team are much broader. I do need people who do red teaming and pen testing, but I really need people who do a lot more of the blue activity and process and building around a good security program. Risk management, this whole job. I mean, we talk about cybersecurity all the time, but the reality is the priority of our commitment to the business is to help them understand risk and what those trade-offs are. So also, just like Sue said, I've had a variety of roles. I got started in cybersecurity doing competitive intelligence. And so understanding, I kind of jumped in about 19 years ago now when people were starting to connect IoT devices to the network. And I kept thinking, what about security? What about security? And so, started digging in and was just really fascinated with it. But before that, I was in sales. And so part of the reason I became a CISO was I understood both worlds. I understood that we couldn't create so much security that we put the business out of business, but we had to have security for the business to function. So trying to find that balance.
Yeah. I hear a lot about curiosity as a factor of why somebody gets hired. And so let's dive into that, Cindy, because let's just keep going on this. one of the questions that I know everybody asks, and let's just start with sort of the entry level, is how do I get in? You know, how do I get hired? How can I get in at the entry level? What's some advice that we can give to those people? I know that a lot of people want that answer. So how do you judge curiosity in an interview, or, you know, any nuggets there for us?
Well, I'm really looking for passion. So in an interview, and Lane, you spoke about this, I believe. Cybersecurity is bigger than our jobs at our organizations. It's really a noble responsibility. I mean, we're at the forefront of trying to protect ourselves from actual nation state actors. I mean, we have so much. You have to have so much commitment to be part of this role, to head into the battle every day. And the reality is no one is excited to see us in the room. You know, if I call you, it's never to say good job. It's to say, hey, I've got to talk to you about an issue that we discovered. So I think that you really have to go into this with an extraordinary amount of enthusiasm, because it's a tough job. I mean, and, you know, I'd be interested in how everyone else feels on the phone call, but for 99.9% of our job, nobody cares. If everything goes well, it's just what's expected. No one's saying, hey, great, you guys protected us 99.9% of the time. We're not getting pats on the back for that. That's expected. It's like electricity in the walls. Nobody cares until it's out, right? And so
Yeah.
I really believe that someone who finds their passion or finds their calling within cybersecurity has to have a real dedication to it, because it's not like your typical job where you go home at night and you just don't think about it. It really is a job that you're committed to 24/7, which is part of the reason we have so much burnout and so many people. So I really coach on my team. I'm always doing, mental health checks. How are you doing? You were called in, you put in a lot of hours. We had an event last week, take some time away, go recharge that battery. So I think, Lane talked about this a little bit. I mean, we're really trying to manage that team and make sure that our players are ready to go in and win the big one if it shows up.
To add on to the what do you look for in the entry level? I look for that spark. It's the curiosity, it's the passion. So we'll often kind of try to understand, well, how do you keep up on technology?
Yeah.
Are you reading articles? How do you exhibit that curiosity? I think as far as getting in, various companies have internships, or even like, technology development programs and things like that. And often those rotate people through a variety of technology capabilities or security capabilities. I would say, how do you get your foot in the door? Are you good at kind of metrics or things like that, or putting data sources together? Because that could be a good way of getting in the door, because, we have to, have metrics that matter and be able to provide like what value we're delivering to the business. I think if you've got a technology passion or you're a developer type, can you get your foot in the door on maybe the requirement side of application security? So if you understand how to code, how do you help talk code to a developer community that you're used to, if you've got some skills there? And I think, even like security operations centers, sometimes those can be a good place to start, but you might even find that maybe you start out as a physical analyst or a fraud analyst, and maybe you have a path to get into kind of a security operations or a cyber analyst. So I would encourage people to look for kind of those entries with skills that you have, and then figure out how you can market them, because everybody needs metrics and reporting, and then you can learn. Everybody is going to have capabilities where they're looking for something in a system and then responding to it. I think those are really great places to learn. So, and a lot of companies, we don't have an infinite pool of people, so we have to curate the talent, we have to grow it. But I think also I would say, don't assume you have to have a traditional tech background, right? Sometimes people with philosophy degrees and things like that are great at security awareness. Security awareness could be another place to get in the door, even a communications team that works with security, because they're trying to help message that in business meaningful terms. But look for non-traditional things. And I think the other thing too, we probably are going to have to expand ourselves on is, if someone has really good expertise, maybe it's not entry level, but they don't have a college degree, are we going to require that anymore? You know, you see a lot of the bigger tech companies not requiring that. So I think that flexibility is really important.
Yeah, Susan, I'd love to add to that too. And Sandy, you made a good point too. There's also some expectation setting. There's a lot of people that sit down and interview or they start their career path. And the expectation is, this is what I want to do. And sometimes they aim for in left field, which is a good place to aim for, but it takes a while to get there. And so some people have an expectation that they're going to go into security and they're going to start where they really want to end up. And you need to help guide where their path is, where they start and where they go. And you can do that by trying to understand what their background is, where their passion is. And he's talking about their passion, like what do they want to do? You know, Susan talked about the people that have different backgrounds, like law enforcement. There's some people reaching out saying, I want to get into security. What do you do? Some of these people have some really great backgrounds and diverse backgrounds, and some of them are good for that, like that threat hunting side, right? Some of them are the threat intelligence side, right? The law enforcement, military type threat intelligence side. So helping guide people based on what their history is, but also understanding that passion. That's huge, right? If somebody comes in with no experience and it's an analyst role, so it's a lower level role, and you know they just want to get their foot in the door, what have they done? If they went and they read about the job, that's one thing. But if they've actually spent some time to go out and learn things and try to apply those in their everyday life, they don't have to have a job that says they have to do this, but they've taken the time to try to do it themselves. Even if they've failed, they've done way more to learn just to get their foot in the door. I would encourage the people that are not into security and not even in IT to look at the different roles across IT. Security is one of those special places where you can't have enough experience outside of security to help drive your success in security. Understanding the risks for application development, the risks for desktop deployment, the risks for server deployment, for GPO management, every aspect of IT or infrastructure or anything, that will drive the success in any path you take in security. And I would just encourage those that are looking for that to try to broaden their horizon, because every bit of that is a foundational step that will set them for success.
I love
That's right. It's going. Yeah, go ahead, Sid. Go ahead. And
I think that what Sandy said early on around the expectations around security was spot on, right? It's like electricity. It's just supposed to happen, and then all of a sudden something else occurs, and we are in the limelight, unfortunately, not for a good reason. So I also, like Sandy, I program chair an InfoSec program for a major Boston university. So whenever I get a chance, in addition to my CISO responsibilities, I try to talk to as many college students as possible, even up and coming college students, because this broad industry is so amazing and there's really no right or wrong answer, but it's really about finding a spot where your passion lies. So some of the things that I'll say to folks, and it doesn't matter if you're entry level or if you're looking at embarking on a brand new career, is you have to do the research because of the broadness of the industry. And it takes a village to make a corporation or even a household secure. And the roles are plentiful. And, TV has sort of done us a little bit of an injustice because, it's not all cops and robbers, guys, and, espionage. And, but that is a part of this field, if that's where you choose to go. So I think Lane mentioned it, the app dev piece, the infrastructure piece, the compliance piece, the risk piece. And so go look at various websites, do your research, go look at jobs, right? On all the different boards, go to CyberSN and look to see what they have. You'll see a wealth of information on different types of roles and then the job descriptions, and you can start looking at your passion. And then once you find it, you can figure out how to get there. So I'd encourage you to find a mentor. You don't necessarily have to have a degree, but it's helpful. It's definitely helpful to have certifications, which I look for. So then you can show that you have some practical experience And then the other prerequisites that I look for, in addition to curiosity and passion, is a sense of humor. Because when the proverbial you know what hits the fan, especially during breach week, you've got to roll with the punches and be flexible. And you have to sometimes talk some people down off the cliff to say, it's going to be okay. The moon isn't going to stop turning and the sun's not going to stop shining. We're going to make it through.
That's right. That's right. That's a great way to sort of wrap this up, is to say, okay, entry level, do your research, which, by the way, it's all over the place, and you're going to have to go search and search and search. That being said, CyberSN has a lot of good data, and we are building a career center. Entry level to CIO, all the paths, but also the projects and the tasks associated with the jobs in one place, certs, everything, because we need this. This is, you all said it, like, don't come to me in an interview and not done your research about what you want to do. Even if this job isn't exactly what you want to do, just know where your passion lies. And we understand that you got to start certain places, and we can help you do that. And so do your research and come prepared. That shows passion. And I also heard, in terms of degrees, they're helpful, and yet we're open. And we need to be open because there's financial barriers to education that we all know exist, and they're a huge problem for society. Even worse for certifications, because there aren't a lot of ways to get support on those financial investments like you can on, let's say, a 4-year degree. And yet you're right, Sue. It's like they're helpful, and who wouldn't want to hire somebody with that? And of course, it opens doors. And yet we know that we're short 500,000 cyber professionals in the U.S. and we're open to it. Just show up with, having done your research, and show up with your passion, and show up that, to care, because the job doesn't really get a lot of love, is what we're saying, meaning. And so therefore, if you're not passionate, you're not going to love it. Like, right? And I think it was, it might have been Sandy that said this, you're checking in on mental health. You're checking in on mental health because this department doesn't get a lot of love, right?
Celebrate the wins.
And yes, you have to. There's hardly any. I liken this profession to emergency responders, and emergency centers at hospitals, where they're doing all kinds of things that aren't emergencies all day long. In their mind, they're not emergencies, right? To the rest of us, I'd pass out helping somebody that walked in with a cut finger or whatever. But the reality is they're in that high state of alert constantly. And then higher states come, and then a lot of people are expected to just be in the office at 8 a.m. no matter what, or, so, they've got to be on the same schedule as everybody else. And it's like, wait a minute, these are emergency workers. At the hospitals, they have beds and couches and places to go take naps, and, right? And so we have to recognize that retaining the talent is just as important, and I know we do, but that it requires more than I want to retain my talent. Like, what kind of care do they need? Mm-hmm. And so let's transition to that. Let's transition into retaining talent. I want to still make sure we have time to touch base on hiring experienced talent. Because we all know we can hire entry level. Like, it's actually this huge amount of people that can't figure out how to get in. So it's actually quite easy to hire entry level. It doesn't mean you don't have to interview, but it's easy. But hiring experienced professionals is a totally different challenge, right? So let's talk about retaining them for a moment, so that we can then talk about hiring. Because to me, that's the place to start. If you want to hire talent, then have a retention plan, which means, how are you going to care for them? What's your plan for them? What happens when they come to work for you? Because that's how you're going to get them as well. So let's start there. Who wants to go first? Lane, you want to jump in? Why don't you jump in and start for us? What are your ideas on retaining talent, and what's working, what hasn't worked? Any shares? Lovely.
You know, absolutely. I think the funny thing is we've touched on a little bit of it, right? So actively engaged. That is the key, is actively engaged. Actively engaged in each individual, knowing that you understand what's going on in their life. So Sandy touched on a little bit as well, and I think Steve did too. But you know, we have a lot going on in our area. Security, it moves at 800 miles an hour, and you know, there's a lot of from the top down. There's a limit to the success-driven conversations. A lot of it's like, you know, I don't remember who said, you know, what are you doing in my office? It must be bad. I must have done something right. We have to be that layer. We have to set that expectation when we talk to the individuals in the department. We have that leadership where we ask them what they're doing, how they're doing, you know, what's going on in life. No matter if it's going 800 miles an hour, right? We still have to be actively engaged, and not just engaged for today, but engaged for tomorrow and a year from now. If you're talking to your teammates, and reference them as teammates and not subordinates to something, but you know, talk to your teammates and ask them, you know, what are they doing in 6 months? Are they buying a house? Are they having kids? What is it in their life personally, actively engaged in their life, so that you understand, you know, when there's a hiccup, you know what that impact is for them. I'll give you a good example. Usually when I have people that work for me, I will sit down and I will start to build out a career path for them. Typically do it on a whiteboard and a PowerPoint, and we start with like what matters to them today. And then we talk about what matters to them at retirement and where they want to go. And then we start building milestones in between each one of those. And a lot of the times you hear like family's most important. And we focus not just on career, but everything about their life. And you'll find out somebody that has animals or cats or something, you know, and that means a lot to them. You would never know how much that would impact them if something were to happen to their cat, for example, and you're in the middle of an issue and they come in and say, my cat just died. You don't know what that means to them unless you're actively engaged in their whole career path and their personal life to understand what that means to them, to say, you know what, why don't you take some time off? I'll take this for you. That right there will mean more to them than any money that you throw at.
Yeah. I love the word engage. It's a constant. It doesn't stop. You know, you're engaged. The only way to stop is to disengage, right? So I love that you use that word, like engage. Be engaged always with your talent. That's number one, right? So that you can, like you said, do some really kind things for them, and also so that you can avoid challenges. If you know how your people think, feel, and perceive, then you can be proactive. I'm a big fan of proactive. I don't like problems. I don't enjoy handling problems. So I learned early in my career of management, I want to avoid them. I want to get ahead of them. And there's patterns that people go through as, you know, we're all in the wisdom stage of our careers. We're past the 40 at least. So maybe we've got experience. That it says that there's the behaviors that we see over and over from humans, including ourselves. So we can get ahead if we're engaged, which is a conscious mindset. And the mind doesn't operate consciously without, you know, being told to. It's something like 1% of the time or something. So Lane, you know, you hit the nail on the head. Number one, right? We're all going to say, engage, be conscious, be aware of how the people that report to you think, feel, and perceive, so that you can avoid challenges and so that you can solve, you know, really bad times for them, or help bad times be better for them. So, you know, pretty high level, how do we go deeper into this? You know, what is it that we can do for them in that proactive zone, or, you know, that is also, you know, not also, but how do we, what are the details there also? So who wants to go next? Sandy, I see you with your head. What do you got?
So I just want to throw this out there. And I know Lane has talked a lot about our role as leaders to develop the people on our team. I'm also aware that maybe I shouldn't retain a talent. You know, like, it's possible that this person has so many more skills that they need to be in an environment where those can really be challenged and they can further their career. Like I've taken them as far as I possibly can in this environment. And I've actually went to people on my team and said, I absolutely would be lost without you, but I want you to know you're a rock star. And, I recognize that there may be bigger and better things for you to be able to achieve your career goals. So I think it's taking a very personal relationship with those people and recognizing that we may be only part of their career, and that I don't want to hold them back. If they're meant for bigger and better things, I want to connect them with those opportunities. So so you're always succession planning. I mean, I do that, very carefully, knowing the impact to my team and knowing that, there may be executives above me who might not be thrilled that I'm coaching that way, but I believe, that's what I would want someone to do for me. And so trying to use that same mentality for the people that I represent to make sure that they achieve the maximum that they can with their talent.
I love that. I love that. Do unto others as you want done to you, first of all. And then second of all, I've been in this conversation a lot in my career, and people say to me, well, how can I succession plan if I don't have a story that's maybe long-term for the person past a couple of years? And really, I thought of it when you were talking, Sandy, because it's just about honesty, and when we can all be honest, we can plan. So in succession planning, we can plan for that person to interview and leave your team while you're, interviewing to replace them, can onboard them, potentially work together to do so. And how wonderful is that? Because job searching and hiding behind your employer's back is terrible. We all hate it, especially if we like our boss. And yet it still has to be done because, like you said, the opportunity isn't there. It's the number one reason people leave jobs today is opportunity to grow. It's number one. Absolutely number one. So if as a leader, as Sandy's saying, that you don't have that, long-term, get ahead of it, make plans with that person, support them on their interviewing and replacing them, and have some overlap to get somebody else up to speed is just a brilliant way to do business. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. I love that. I love that. Look at this. We're like number one, number two, like that's number two, right? Like, caring for your people is succession planning, because everybody's brain wants to be challenged and grow. And who doesn't want to make more money? Everybody does, which usually growth represents more money because you're doing more things, harder tasks that take more wisdom. And so if we're ahead of that, then you don't really lose talent. You're working with talent and you're building teams and you're building individuals. And I just think it's awesome that's not, so what we got to second. So, okay, so we've got succession planning, we've got growth and opportunity we know people want. What about, you've got a story for them. How much training? What's happening with, training these days? How much training do you need to give? And does it vary versus position in order to grow people, which is ultimately retaining them? What's that look like? Who can share some nuggets there? Because I hear, along with growth, in terms of reason for leaving, I pay attention to that stat in my company. Like, it has to be recorded very well. Like, I want to stay in tune with it. And it's always tied to training, so it's not like they just want the other position. They want the training to do well in that other position too. They really go together. So what are you all doing from a training perspective, and what have you learned with that?
I'll take this one up.
Yeah, Susan, go ahead. Yeah.
I guess I have just a little bit different spin, or maybe a preface to this. So I actually say, sort of tongue in cheek, that if I'm doing my job correctly, my world is mundane and routine, right? Because if I'm running around with my hair on fire, then so is everyone else. And that's not a good situation. Our companies need to be sound and secure. Therefore, we have to have the right of everything in place: process, procedure, technology, and operations, in order to make it routine and mundane. When it's quiet, you can give people the opportunity to do some really cool things, like train, like cross-train, and have the ability to be involved in a lot of projects that are going to be for the betterment of the company and for themselves. And only when you can do that, they can grow and be successful because they're being challenged within their own roles. And then hopefully, and I think Lane said this, you have career pathing in place that you give them the opportunity to step into another place. You treat them well, you pay them well, and you retain them in the end of the day. And that is a recipe for success. If you're not doing all those things and everyone's running around, it's a constant battle around security, and you're not paying or treating them well, they're going to go elsewhere, and you deserve to lose your employees then.
I love that you just said that. Susan.
If I could add to that, I love what Sue said there. It's the capacity to do the training. And so I think we all, I love what Sandy was saying, Lane was saying, you know, we're teachers, we're coaches, right? We're teaching. And we can never give up that responsibility. But how do we give capacity? And I always say to my team, because we have to give people the freedom to be efficient and innovative. So I coin phrases like effovation, and someday we'll make that a word in the dictionary. But how do we automate kind of the more button clicking kind of tasks to provide capacity but change the way we work? So how do you, in a security operations center, as an example, take level 1 items, really automate those, and then pivot that time to more level 2 or hunting activities? Because that's what people want to do. And I think that's kind of part of what I call on-the-job training. In addition to that, from a training perspective, though, do you have a curriculum? People want the SON certifications. They want CISSP, CISM, CRISC. You know, do you have cohorts where you offer that, you pay for the initial test? You know, if someone fails that, then they have to pay for it the second time. I think that's an opportunity, but I never want to forget things like on-the-job training. You know, do you have an in-house red team that can sit with your blue team and do purple teams? Because there's training there, you're learning and you're curating from each other. And having even like lunch and learns or brown bags. I think even having vendor sessions, and I like to call vendors partners, because I expect a vendor to be right there with me. We're all fighting the same fight against the same adversaries. Our paychecks are just cut from 2 separate companies, but they can teach you things, right? They're seeing things. Have them come in and tell you about their new things coming along, or even invite venture capital type of firms in for kind of a lunch and learn, an industry session, whatever it might be. So I think there's all different kinds of way to do training besides just, you know, going to a conference or a virtual conference. But I also think that as part of virtual conferences, which I think a lot of us have taken advantage of this year, you as a leader actually have to give people time to do that and have to recognize that they need that time. And you have to really kind of hold that as sanctimonious.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing from you all is that, okay, so first of all, the leader has to keep things calm, other than when you can't keep things calm, but like you're literally running trains and machine processes, if you will, or human processes is a better way to say it, such that you can plan, as you said, Susan, for the training, both on the job, projects, lunch and learns, partners, you know, as you said, cross training projects have to be planned. They can't just happen. They literally have to be planned in advance. And so does the certification training. So lots and lots of planning. If you're a leader, or a manager, because we can all be leaders and not manage people. If you're a manager of others, you must make a certain percentage of your time for the planning of their training, both in the company, you know, and outside. So how much time? I want to start to, you know, nail this down for everybody, because I see a lot of hiring going on and CISO jobs being created on my platform. And the time that's put in for people management, I'm always like, oh, okay, that's not going to work. You know, I won't tell you what I see traditionally until I hear from each of you. What's the percentage of your time that needs to be allocated to really be ahead of your people, to be proactive, to do all that training? How much time do you think somebody in an enterprise, let's just speak for enterprise, needs to spend of their time overall? Say there's 100% of your time over the course of a year. How much time should be slated to care for your people? What do you think? what are you operating at? Or, you know, what do you think? And I say this because those that hire you, I'm starting to make sure that they're thinking about it, because what I see a lot is not the time slotted to do this. And I know as a CEO, I struggle with it. The time to plan for my people is a lot. It's a lot of time. So what do you all think about that? And have you found a amount of time that's appropriate, or are you still struggling with it like a lot of people, or what do you think?
Well, you know, and I love what Sue said about giving people the capacity, because you know, when I look at training, it isn't actually getting the dollars to get the training. It's getting people the time to be able to do the training. And it is, you know, we always have, you know, 3 to 4 times the amount of work that we can possibly do. So it's a daily prioritization of, you know, where do we need to put our resources? But I am, you know, for the managers that I manage, I give them an hour per week for a one-on-one. I'm committed to that. We spend that time, and that, you know, we walk through the goals and milestones, but also you know, my first question is, what can I do for you? Can I block? Can I fix? What can I fix for you? So I would say it's at least easily 30% of my time is just trying to manage, trying to take care of the people that I have on my team.
And how many people do you have, Sandy, that report to you?
18 total, and 3 direct managers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 30%. Yeah. That's a good number. I see a lot less than that. I see about 10% is what people put. It's like, how, right? How? Lane, I see you want to say something. What do you think?
Yeah, I was telling you, I think 5 to 10% is probably what the standard answer is, right? And what Sandy was talking about there, I've implemented something in the past where kind of what she's talking about, but you make a requirement that every individual on the team has to spend at least 1 hour training with another team, and not just, you know, go read a magazine, but go sit with another team and train another team in the business, another team in IT, and that kind of training makes people's eyes open up sometimes and what they really want to do. And sometimes the people in the business that do the same thing, where they come and they sit down in IT and they say, hey, I want to learn what you guys do. Sometimes you find some really great talent that way, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
100%. So we do lunch and learns every other week, and that has been really successful. You know, just getting our message around cybersecurity. It's a ton of work. You know, I lead that and try to organize it, but getting people to come and do the lunch and learns. I get people from outside of our company, inside of the company. I'll come tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, I need you to do this, and here's why I think it's important. To teach it, you have to learn it at a deeper level. So I'm challenging them with their leadership and teaching skills, so broadening skills that way. But yeah, totally agree. Also, I want to mention that John Strand from Black Hills Security is offering some excellent training, and some of it, he's basing it on what you can pay. So if you just lost your job or you don't have an income, he's saying, come take this training and there's no cost to it. I attended a session in November. It was excellent. So that's an opportunity for people who are trying to get a job within cybersecurity and to get some of that training.
Hey, on the topic of time, I would say, you know, 20-25%. You know, I do the same thing with the one-on-ones. I currently have 8 direct reports, but I have a staff of 525. So I think that the other thing too, connectivity wise, just with COVID, et cetera, I do like an open mic every week for the entire group, whoever wants to join. And I really just tell them, here's what's happened this week, a risk committee or decisions that were made or key projects and key metrics. And, you know, getting good feedback on that. You know, people are like, I didn't know that. Thank you. So I think that's even an opportunity to, even when you return to work in some office situation, I'm going to keep that going no matter what, because I think it gives that connectivity that people may not get. But I think, you know, that 20%, I'm going to take that a little bit further. I'll give an example. One of my leaders was just pinging me. I said, you need to go to this committee. I cannot make it today. And they came back to me and said, hey, this wasn't vetted with us before it was presented. There were some issues in that. And I said, well, I'm not going to give you the answer. I said, but what are your suggestions on how we help that team change their approach so they're not going in with things that aren't correct from security? So I'm kind of challenged them. I'm not giving the answers. I'm saying, okay, what do you think? I kind of know what I think some of the answers are, but I'm not teaching if I'm not doing that. So I always look for those opportunities. I call them the muskrat opportunities, so, and my team laughs because I'll put muskrat in like a chat with them. And like, we'll talk quickly about this and how you probably want to change that approach and pivot. So I always say that it's kind of ongoing. Like, how do you look for that coaching and ongoing to help those folks kind of get better? And I will do that even at multiple levels. If I see something, I'm like, hey, you might want to think about this, and here's some things to consider. So I think that's our job, to look for those muskrat opportunities all the time.
That's another dictionary word we need to get placed. I love that you're talking about open mic, or just all of you, about communicating. Like, that is a way to care for people, is to keep them in the know of the business, the projects. I remember early on in my career having a boss that I loved, but also, just was so challenged by. She was one above me, and she would always say, I don't want to bore you with the business details, or you don't need to know this, you just need to know this. And I used to get so angry in my early 20s inside, thinking, what? Why wouldn't I want to know those things? And so, it's so powerful to keep people in the know. And we can't always rely on telephone, right? You've got 500 what people it was, and I'm sure you've got a lot of people out there disseminating information. Why not make sure that there's access to you in case that information wants to be spoken about or checked on? Like, why not? I feel the same way. And so information is caring too, right? Like, just keeping people in the know of the business and the strategy and how it all fits. I mean, you all are across all business lines, everything you do. And so that knowledge is so important to their advancement, that is growth support.
And be approachable. Don't be that grumpy, annoyed, like I'm really conscientious about that on my team. Even like the phishing training, like, don't embarrass people. Don't make them feel intimidated if they don't know the answer. Like, keep it open so people feel like they can come tell you things and you're approachable. And that, not just myself, but the whole team. Like, don't treat people disrespectfully because they don't know the answer to a cybersecurity question. They're an expert at customer service. They're an expert at accounting. Help make sure and keep that communication open.
I love that.
That's right. And yeah,
I would also love to add that any time we can put ourselves out in the business, and this goes across multifaceted, everybody in security, not just leadership. This is everybody's responsibility in security, is to reach out to people and make them feel comfortable across the entire business, so that when they have a question, you can stop your day, spend time with them, and explain right down to the detail, every detail for them, so that they can understand it in their world, not in our world, because we speak a different language, but make it them understand it in their world. And they will come back and ask you more questions and more questions. The more people that we have out in the business that understands the impact and understands security, the better security posture we all have.
Yeah, I got some 10 badges from Amazon, 10 badges. And when someone reported something, I'd actually give them this 10 badge and say, okay, I deputized you onto the cybersecurity team. Just trying to create that openness, trying to make them realize that, hey, you guys are important. Like, you're part of the human firewall. We really need you to think about security.
The only other thing that I would add, and I can't disagree with anything that anyone has said, but just another little twist is your vendors, right? And going back to that training and making people feel challenged and getting them, to stay abreast of everything. The quarterly business review, the QBR, is something that I make sure that every major vendor does. I strive for quarterly. Sometimes it's, it's twice a year, whenever we can fit it in, but it is so important. You're going to have members on your team that are great at staying abreast of what's going on there, But let me tell you, the world is changing so fast. You can't keep up with it all. It's nice to have your vendor in often and saying, we're under NDA. What's coming down the pipeline that I should be looking at? And you'd be surprised at how beneficial that is.
Great. That's a great way to wrap up retaining talent. Yeah, it's we involve them. They're smart. They care. Their livelihoods depend on you being happy with them. So they're going to do their best if you embrace them and treat them, like Susan said, as, the same people on the team just get their paycheck another way, which, by the way, applies to contractors. And those of us that don't treat contractors the same are really missing out on teamwork. And so in wrapping this conversation, I do want to tell everybody Myers-Briggs is a great, inexpensive way to feed the EQ skills that we're all talking about here to our teammates and to ourselves and to organizations. And then I'll put also out there situational leadership. Those two programs I found early in my career from the folks I work for, and I've never left them. I take them everywhere I go. They are wonderful programs. Situational leadership teaches people how to manage up, how to manage themselves, how to manage down, super powerful stuff. All right, let's put a bow on that retention piece that starts with care, and don't manage people if you don't care, or if you don't want a job that's about caring for others. I'm out there fighting for you security leaders to get 50% of your day for people. I'm fighting for myself to have that too. I'm somewhere between around 30 to 35, and I still need more. And so, that bow is nice and pretty. Let's talk about what is harder, the fact that we're trying to take talent from other places, which is what we have to do with experienced talent. We are short. It takes years to develop the experienced talent. So we do have to get them from other places. What's our strategy? What's working? What's not working? How are we dealing with the age-old job description issue that everybody hates, and the age-old salary challenge with HR putting cyber sort of in the IT bucket, if you will? And what have you done? What can you share? And we know the problems are out there. Those are the two biggest. What kind of golden nuggets do we got? Who wants to start? And of course, we're ending with 7 minutes on a big topic. So Lane, jump in here. I see you. Go ahead.
Actually, foundationally, I think that's a good place to start, right? If we talk about getting the right talent, it starts with the HR department. Talent acquisition and creating the job profiles required for security, not based on job families inside IT, because it's a specialized field. Creating job families that have language and have the centralization around IT doesn't get the talent we need. We have to help our partners in HR overcome that, build those profiles so that we can create listings and things that have those trigger keywords that when somebody's looking for a new opportunity, you're given those keywords in there. If you've got somebody that does threat intelligence, you've got somebody that does risk, right? You start talking about your SOCs, your SOC 2, high trust NIST, 171, 853. You start talking about the things that somebody's going to look at that and respond back. It's going to be more aligned to the roles that you have, right? And then, when you finally sit down with people to interview them, the one thing I would say is start the interview off decompressing. Don't create a stressful situation, because people don't excel in that, not at work and not in an interview, and people are already nervous. Start a conversation interview, asking about the individual and what they like to do for fun outside of business. That will start a conversation where they're more comfortable, and they will tell you more things about them, and they will shine through more than in that stressful situation.
Totally. Love that. I was trained to start the conversation of tell me about yourself, not, a quiz on a technical aspect or, solve this problem for you. Just tell me about yourself. And in that experience, sharing about ourselves too. You hit the nail on the head, Lane. Once you're in the interview, that's the name of the game, making a connection with that person. We work for people, not necessarily jobs. And we have to be personable, caring, on time, engaged, like paying attention, looking at the person in order to make them feel comfortable leaving a job. Again, these aren't unemployed people 99% of the time. And 99% of the time, they've already made a move or two. And so they know that there's risk and that a lot of times a story isn't what it's made out to be when they arrive. And so the more you can build the relationship and be super transparent in terms of your opportunity and the department, what have you, and that's how my clients get people. And of course, you know, we make sure they're prepared for that, but that's the name of the game. And if people don't want to do that, well, then, you know, I certainly won't, we won't staff for them. Never mind, will they be successful? Something else you said on the job description, I just want to make sure everybody knows that, you know, I built that job building technology years ago in order to build CyberSN to the largest cybersecurity staffing firm in the US. And I made it a public platform last year so that you all can build your jobs and give them to HR, because A, I can't fill everybody's job anyways. B, I care. Like, this is a problem. Your jobs are not getting answered because of the way they look. I mean, professionals, you all do it too. You see the same job. You see a job that doesn't make sense. You see a job that's 4 or 5 people in one. You're not responding. So those bad job descriptions really hurt you. People talk about it all the time. So it's free. Use it. This is a national security issue. I want to solve this for everybody. All right, what else do we got in terms of hiring people? Any other nuggets here? And then we're going to wrap with Sue telling us for sure your story, but I'm sure you've got some nuggets. Go ahead, Sue.
Go global, both for employees and employers. We're in a COVID age. Everyone's working from home. You don't have to sit in your little town or your city or your state. Go global. And if a company doesn't want you because you can't walk into the office, that's their loss, because no one's walking into the office. So that's my best.
After COVID too. That's we're seeing that for sure. There's a bit of a difference on the West Coast. The West Coast is saying, yeah, we don't care where you are pre or post COVID. We just want you. East Coast is, you know, a little bit older organizations. And it's like, well, you can be remote now, but you need to be close enough to the office to come in a couple of days a week after COVID. And so it's not really remote. And we see the competition. It affects the competition. So I agree. If possible, you know, again, they're experienced professionals, let them be remote. That's a good way to hire. Is it opens up your pipeline. Anybody else? Got any nuggets? Well, I'm not surprised that there aren't too many ways to solve this problem. You got to invest and do the work and make sure your hiring process is really attractive. There is no doubt in my mind, and Sue, I bet you can share this, that those that move quickly get. Meaning, we're emotional creatures. If you interview me and then you tell me you really like me and keep spending time with me and then make an offer all within a couple of weeks, my emotions are that you really like me and I'm emotionally more interested in you. That's just like human nature. I've seen it my whole career. And so you got to be prepared. Have all, you know, who's number 1, interview 2, 3, don't go past more than 3, have your signatures ready, know the money game that you need to play, because it's all about timing and emotions of that person. And also you're competing against people who are being told that or who already know that too. And you won't even have a chance if you don't have a way to move quickly. So on that note, Sue, you just spent some time job searching. What are the do nots and what are the do's? Let's wrap up with that.
The company that won out, and there were a lot of opportunities, the company that won out had a great culture and constantly told me that I was the number 1 candidate. And the flip side of that is it came down to 2. The one that when I called them to say I've taken another role, they said, but you were our top candidate. And my first statement was, it would have been nice to know that, right? So here, in a really quick nutshell, a few job pointers for those that are on the market. Network, and network. Produce a list of people that you trust. Produce an A list of companies that you want to work for. More often than not, the A list doesn't necessarily work for you, the company list. So have a B and a C list. keep networking. The job boards are okay. You definitely get to apply for them, but network internally to see if you know someone who can get you in or know someone in the company to get you in front of the hiring manager. That's how I found every single role that I just 9 weeks start to finish in a CISO role. It's unheard of. And it was my network. It wasn't the job boards that did it for me.
That's right. That's right. Well said. I love it. I mean, what a great example that that company that you turned down, you didn't know how much they cared for you and you were calling to turn down. I wonder what would have happened if they made you understand how much they cared for you like the other company, you know, like in my brain, I'm, you know,
I picked up on a red flag and it was culture. And so I've been around the block enough to know that if there's a red flag, no companies mentioned, no names mentioned, but I had this one opportunity and they kept rescheduling me. And I finally said, no, you're off the list.
Yeah, it's not good at all. So on the culture note, I see this often that somebody that's interviewing is interviewing and shouldn't be interviewing, meaning they're not an upbeat, positive person. They don't love their job, and yet they're in the interviewing process. It's bad news. And it could be, a lot of times I see it in other departments, like, you know, the dev team wants to vet the DevSecOps person, which is classic. And that all of a sudden the person's not interested in the job anymore based on the interview right? And so as leaders, we need to know who's interviewing and how do they interview? What do we want them to do in the interview process? What's their job in the interviewing process? Part of that job is to show that the culture is awesome, and part of that job is to vet something or to discuss something. And so we got to get ahead of that. That's a part of having a clean, lean, positive cultural interviewing process. So, oh my gosh, we could talk for hours. I love you all so much. You come to your roles with care. Even in breach week, you showed up for this conversation. You're super special. Nikki, I know you've been there. I see your pretty face. We kicked off sharing about MindLance and CyberSN, and I'll wrap on that. And just to say that, you know, MindLance is an international staffing firm with many offerings across IT and other disciplines. And together we can offer a lot more, which is why we've partnered up. And so thank you to MindLance again for helping make this happen. We will send out these recordings with some good attachments to the trainings and the things that were talked about here. So thank you again, team. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Deidre, and thank you, Nikki. Nikki was pretty persistent to get me on one of these calls, and it was great to meet you, Lane and Susan and Sue. I just really could talk to you guys all day long. I learned. I took a bunch of notes. Thank you for the opportunity, Deidre.
Yes, absolutely. We'll do another one, right? Let's keep this conversation going because it changes constantly, and you're all learning. I'm learning, so we'll do something. Let's do something end of Q1. So on that note, I'm going to stop recording, and everybody have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season in the new year.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Bye.